And it looks like we are live, and Merlin's in the house. Hey, Merlin.
Hey, everybody.
And actually, Dave is here too. So, oh yes, we understand. What you probably mean is that you remember Dekindre in his interview where he was talking about selling his house in Hawaii and moving to Glasgow, Scotland, right? Is that what you were talking about? So, anyways, he goes, sorry, my typing tonight. I'm sure that it's fine. And yeah, we have our own issues with the typing too. And believe me.
Nothing compared to my typos. I can't type two or three words without getting jumbled up.
Yeah, Dave, did you want to share like why it's extra challenging for you to type? Like for our, like
yeah,
it's public, so
that doesn't bother me. This is your interview, but yeah, I can just give a brief rundown.
I know, but
for me,
it's actually going to be a conversation because you actually have quite a bit to do with this.
True, yeah. But the reason I have trouble typing and make a lot of typos, I had a neurological illness when I was 10 years old called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it causes paralysis, but the after effects of it are very similar to post-polio syndrome. So you can move your fingers and all that, but you lose fine motor control. So when I'm aiming at one key, like if I'm aiming at the T, I may hit the R or the Y. So the letters get all jumbled up.
Yeah.
And only an AI can really decode it. The regular type of
like you're talking about like the normal talk to text, it doesn't work for you very well.
Well, it does if I use Chat GPT because it hears my voice and it can immediately transcribe. But even if I put the more advanced AIs like Chat GPT are the only ones that can take my jumbled text if I'm typing it and I put it in there and it'll decode most.
So you're saying you don't speak into it, you actually just use your typing in there and then it fixes your typing. I see.
Yeah. I mean, you can speak into it, but it's more setup. You have to do the setup with your headset and all that. And I'm often too busy doing several things at once to focus on one browser tab or the other because I'm doing a lot of stuff at the same time. So that's
I see.
So I just put my weird typo massive jumbled letters into it and it figures out what I'm actually saying with only like 2 or 3 words in a whole page wrong that I have to correct afterwards because they're so jumbled that it can't decode them. But yeah, that's essentially what's going on.
I totally understand. So, and I have enough of my own issues, and I don't even have all of the neurological stuff. So, and I'm sure that other people, can really relate. So, welcome tonight. I'm like, Calantirniel. Lisa Allen MH is also my professional name. The MH stands for Master Herbalist because I received a diploma for herbalism in 2007 from the School of Natural Healing, which is the oldest herbal school in the country that's still in existence. So that's in Utah. And I did that back when I lived in Montana and back when Ray was alive. And you remember all of that, Dave, because I mean, this was like
wasn't
long time ago.
Wasn't it like 2008 or 2009 or something like that?
2007 was when I went and did my test. 2009 was when I received my Reiki Master.
Right.
Or no, I take it back. 2009 was when I received my Reiki 2, and 2010 was when I received my Reiki Master.
Okay, right.
Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, that's just how it is. So, so I guess, I should go back to the beginning, right? So, I am approximately, for you guys, 61 years old. I had a birthday in January. Okay. And, I did not discover Tolkien until I was around 12. So we're talking like the 70s, and we were assigned reading The Hobbit in school. I very much enjoyed the stories, and that was my, like, I guess my first exposure to Tolkien. And in fact, I remember when I was young, I didn't really want to read like with the class. I wanted to take my own time and kind of immerse myself in the world that was happening. But, you know, school has this, you know, you've got to read and you've got to do all this stuff, you know. And I just wanted to hang out in the Shire. Like, I mean, I guess I turned out to be like kind of Gandalf like that, right? So that was when I was very young. And when I got to high school, I understood about Lord of the Rings, and I just never read them. Okay, like for a really long time. What had happened is that by the time that 2000 came, that's when Peter Jackson's movies were being released. And when I saw the opening of the Fellowship of the Ring, I'm like, whoa, okay, like it was just awesome. It blew me away, like everybody else, right? Like everybody else was blown away too. So, you know, that was so well done. And I still think that in many ways, those movies still stand the test of time. They're not perfect by any means, but the things that they got right, I feel like they really nailed the spirit of Tolkien. Okay.
They were a hell of a lot better than Rings of Prime.
Rings of Prime. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So, and so it got me kind of interested in reading the stories again, but I just, you know, by then I was, so by 93, I had a spiritual awakening that was pretty intense. It was my Saturn return. And what happened was I was wearing a malachite necklace, and you will see that I'm just wearing my normal 3 necklaces that I shared on social media, like my two trees, you know, the gold and silver, which is actually brass and silver in this case, because I prefer brass. And then my 7-pointed star, and we're, you know, waiting to get the septaquitra pendants, right, still. So I was wearing a malachite pendant that day. Well, back in 1993, a lot of people did not know about crystals and what they were. So today, like, people can look far away and tell you, oh, that's a malachite or whatever. But back then, like, people really didn't know what they were. So I was wearing my malachite necklace, and most people said, oh, is that a weird kind of jade or something like that? I had and she's still my friend. Her name is Tanya. She lives in Colorado now and has for quite a long time. But I met her this one evening at my Saturn return, and she said, hey, is that a malachite? And I'm like, wow, you know what this is? She said, yeah, let me hold it while it's on you. And I'm like, okay. So turns out she's half Native American, and she was holding, you know, she was holding the stone in her hand, and it was like shaking, you know, like kind of like this, right? And her eyes were kind of rolling around, and this was like for about 3 or 4 minutes, which seemed very long time, and I didn't know what was happening, so I just sat there. And then she came back out, like, you know, and said, this necklace will give you everything that you want in, like, love, money, protection. Don't get rid of the stone. She put it back on my chest, and it burned me. Okay, I'm not even kidding. I had to put aloe vera on my chest for about 3 days. And of course, here I am going, I need your phone number. Okay. This is how I make friends, apparently. So this was 1993. I talked to her about what her, you know, like her relationship with the stones and some of this stuff, because I was very not awake at the time. I was a legal secretary. I had an attorney who, interestingly, was a Pisces, and we're in Pisces month right now, talk about astrology and other things. So, like, I was just like, I was just right for, you know, all of the downloads of everything. And I had studied sun sign astrology when I was young. Like I thought it was pretty fascinating, but I didn't realize like that not only do you have a sun sign, you have a moon sign, you have a rising sign, you have a Mars sign, you have a Venus sign, you have, you have the whole wheel, right? And all the planets have a sign. All the stars are like on that chart as well. And so that was around the time that I started learning astrology, and it blew my mind. Okay. I definitely, between having a burn mark on my chest and having my attorney blow my mind with astrological, like, information and transits, and I got to learn what an ephemeris was, and I read his entire library of all of the astrology books and everything. And I moved to North Carolina like around 96. And I'm a single mom, okay? Like at this point, I'm a single mom, okay? Even by 93, I was a single mother of 2 kids. And I moved to North Carolina for like from 96 to 2000. And I was involved with the, North Carolina, like astrologers, and like there was other metaphysical people that I hung around with. I picked up tarot, I picked up dowsing. That's where I learned dowsing, okay? Like was in North Carolina, but I was so natural with it. I totally pick up pendulums, and I can, like there's always pendulums around me. I have right now, I'm trying to get to know this one. This is an aventurine, and it wanted this serpentine top on it. So I'm just kind of getting familiar with this one. But I have tons of pendulums, okay, and they're all around. And so I'm kind of like, on the witchcraft side, which this is kind of where I started really digging into witchcraft too. And it was more about self-educating and reading books. Thank you, Merlin. Oh, Vera Faith is in the house. Girl, didn't see you pop in. How is it going? So what happened was I was studying, okay, so astrology was the hardest thing, but I figured out that tarot and oracle decks and magic, other things, they all kind of matched around astrology. So like when I was learning astrology, I had a framework that was really good for everything else that I was learning, including studying many world religions. And what I figured out early on though was that it was not a good idea to mix them together unless you knew what you were doing. And what I mean by that is, if there was a body of knowledge, like for instance, the Greco-Egyptian, there was a mix of like Isis in, Greek, because there were temples in Greece to Isis. Okay, so then there's some kind of grounding with Egyptian and Greek pantheons together. But if you just mix them willy-nilly together, you kind of could get a really bad result, okay, if you were doing magic and you didn't know what you were doing. And, we don't have a lot of time to discuss that right now, but I will tell you, I've seen some very detrimental kind of magic kinds of things done because of this like idea of anything goes, you can do whatever you want. Actually, I mean, I guess you can do anything you want, but then that means that there's consequences, right? So
well, you can do that with a gun too, but there's consequences.
I know, that's what I'm talking about. Like, exactly. So, and by the way, I guess people don't really take magic, maybe that seriously. I had to, because, I had some very strange things happen to me when I was waking up. And, I was thinking about like when I was a kid, and I was able to shut all of those psychic senses down because I was having really scary dreams and stuff like that when I was a kid. And so it was just easier for me to just, like, I'm going to check out. I'm not going to do this. Okay. So I lived a very secular life for a really long time. Things were more, I guess, science, but I mean, I knew that there were things in the world that couldn't be explained by science. Okay. But I wasn't also like looking for it in the same way as what happened, like when I had a burn mark that I couldn't explain, you know, and I was healing it with aloe vera and it was real. And I had other people looking at it. And so it made me start thinking about, okay, what else happens on places that you can't really explain, or places that you know, like, you know, something energetically is going on, but you don't see any physical actions, but yet you see a physical sign sometimes after an energetic moment. Okay. And so you know, that got me into studying crystals, like, for a little bit, because my friend who was able to heat up the malachite, she talked to me about crystals. And so I ended up getting Scott Cunningham's book on crystal and metal and gem magic, and that was my first, like, magical text, is like, it was just on crystals, like. And then I started getting into other things and going from there, but I really liked Scott Cunningham's writing. And it turns out, when I was introduced to him, it was in San Diego when my friend Tanya told me about the, you know, like, these books. And it turns out, around the time that I bought that book, and I was living in San Diego at the time, Scott Cunningham was from San Diego, and he had just passed away when I discovered him. And I just thought, man, you know, what a cool thing would have been to meet him. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
You know, I was just gonna say, now that you mention, my wife had two of these. She had the minerals one. She also had like an herbal one, as I
his
remember.
herb one I still
Yeah.
would use, and his aromatherapy one is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I use that aromatherapy one many times, and I still recommend those. So Paul Hewson has books on, you know, like, herbal, like, it's kind of a, you know, like a herbal dictionary type of thing, and all of the magical uses, etc. And so does Scott Cunningham. So I like both of those books for herbal magic. I guess I'm talking about Western herbal magic, although I would say that some of the magic probably bleeds from other cultures, but most of it's Western lore. And so, you know, here I am in North Carolina by this time, and my kids are, you know, like, getting older, and I'm studying astrology, and I'm just going there. And by, you know, 1997, I'm already learning aromatherapy. I'm learning tarot. I'm learning dowsing, okay, from a friend of mine who, by the way, was an aromatherapist and a reflexologist, and she's the one that taught me how to dowse. And it was so natural that to this day, she still calls me if she needs some dowsing done, because I'm just really natural with it. Like, she showed me how to use a pendulum, and I was off and running. Like, it was the best thing ever, right? So I had a few weird experiences when I was opening up magically. I figured out that I had to be very careful what I said, because I had spirit guides at the time that would take me seriously even when I was joking around about things. Okay, so it made me very careful with what I was saying after that, because I just didn't like the price that I would pay for making a joke and then they made it come true, right? Didn't appreciate that very much. So I became a lot more careful with what I would do for intentions. And even when I was not in circle, I still have to be careful what I say. And so it was just a lesson for me. Like, I think some people can get away with jokes and stuff. And, you know, especially if you're a comedian, right? Like, you have to be able to get away with jokes. Okay. But apparently my guides were like, yeah, you're not going to be a comedian. Okay. So we're going to make sure that you're very, you know, like, you have to be very careful what you say. So I moved back to San Diego around 2000 with my kids, and I got, you know, it took a while to get an apartment. There was a few other things that happened to me that you know, I'll tell you guys if you want to know, but I had an incident like where my car in 2000 ran off the road in Nevada near the, you know, Area 51. Okay. Things like that. Okay. I had some weird experiences. Okay. What I could then do was, so I moved back to San Diego and I started working in astrology. So I had taken a lot of classes, read tons of books, and during an eclipse in 1999 out in North Carolina, I had, you know, a total epiphany, and I had a very deep dream about me being an astrologer. I was wearing this like blazer, I remember, like in this dream, and I was surrounded by the heavens. Like I was not even on earth. I was like sitting in a chair in the middle of heavens, you know, and looking around and advising people. And so that was a pretty awesome dream. And I don't dream that often. So I know, or I should say, I don't remember my dreams very often. So I know that that was important. And so I know when my guides want me to know something, they will make me remember. And so then when I'm back in San Diego, I got a job as an astrologer for 12 signs. And that was a really educational job for me, because it really allowed me to take my amateur skills with astrology, and it threw me in the pool to become a professional astrologer very quickly. It was very life-changing, and it was stuff that, like, I guess that you can't put in books, you know, the practice, the, you know, getting advice from other people that, like, you know, do astrology for a living. It was a great apprenticeship, if you will. Meanwhile, I'm practicing magic, and I guess that, you know, again, I read books on Wicca and witchcraft and Buddhism and, you know, New Age, and like I read a lot of books about lots of different things, including thelemic magic. I read about all kinds of things. Now, when I was doing this, though, I always applied everything that I learned to astrology, because astrology became like my foundation. Okay. So I watched Peter Jackson's movies, you know, and then moved to Montana. Like I married Ray. Ray was way into Tolkien. I talked to you about that. Like he used to be, you know, a surfer. He was a rock star, and he was a dungeon master, like in D&D games. And oh, Astrofell is here. Hey, dream journaling helps. Yeah, I know, and I'm so bad with that. I'm so bad with that. Yeah, maybe I'll have to figure out a different way maybe to do it. I'm right now I'm in an online coven that's separate from the Elven spiritual path, because I work there. Okay, like I'm doing work and trade for school, if that makes sense. And she actually does have a class in dreaming that I may you know, like I may like look at that again and see what I can do. So it's nice to see you here. So then okay, so I became kind of a magician, but it was like more, I won't say eclectic, because that means you do whatever you want, and that's not what I did. I was very careful that I never mixed traditions together. I did not mix Norse with Celtic. I didn't mix Mesoamerican with Egyptian. I didn't mix African with Hindu. I didn't mix Chinese with Eskimo or, you know, Inuit. Okay, I didn't do those types of things, because every pantheon has its own like integrity and its own energy, and you don't want to just hairy scary mix them together. Like, you know, there can be bad results from that.
Sometimes sometimes the god forms will fight. That's
what happened. Okay,
yeah.
so I mean, I guess that we'll have to go to this place. One of the rituals that I was aware of peripherally in my wanderings. There was an eclectic group who decided for their goddess that they would use Quetzalcoatl in the Mesoamerican path. Okay, he is a war goddess. Now, unlike the war goddess in the Greek pantheon, okay, that would be Ares or Mars, right? That would be the war goddess or god, there, okay. But in the Mesoamerican path, Quetzalcoatl is the war god, but he is Venus in their culture.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
The planet, okay, Venus, and by the way, on the note of Venus, you guys should look in the western sky at sunset, because Venus is as high as she's going to be right now. She's glorious, okay? She's just amazing right now. And I thought about Arwen Undomiel, the evening star, okay?
Exactly.
And then as she goes retrograde this weekend, and it's going to be, so halfway through the cycle, so another like 21, 22 days later, she'll be like, I guess, meeting the sun. And normally Venus is in the underworld during that time for 8 days. This time in the northern hemisphere, she's not going to be in the underworld. She'll literally go down in the western hemisphere and then pop out the next morning in the eastern hemisphere. That is super rare. Okay. The morning star would be like really aligned with Luthien. And so it was something that I wanted to talk about with the path members and like particularly the patrons of, do you guys feel that maybe you would like to do some kind of a Venus ritual as she goes retrograde for Arwen, the even star, okay, for the retrograde, like as it's going to be happening. And then when she goes direct on April 12th or 13th, we can have a Luthien. Oh, Astrofel says, I would love that. Okay.
I think that's a
that
great
would be
idea.
real cool.
We haven't done a Venus ritual since like 2007.
Exactly. And the Venus ritual we did then was about when it was conjunct Jupiter.
Right.
Alcarinque,
right.
I remember.
Right.
So we did, yeah. And I didn't think about doing a ritual for the even star and then the morning star, like later on. Okay.
Right.
So we could do that, I guess, when the superior conjunction with the Earth happens, but or the sun, I guess the Earth, like it's the same axis, like for the crescent that happens. But yeah. So and Astrofel says, oh, and Veriface says, sure, okay, cool. So we'll talk about that. So, Dave, maybe you want to fire up your Legendarium research and let's look for passages with Arwen and Luthien in April.
Yeah, I'll make a note of it right now.
Okay, awesome. So, and by the way, Erendiel is also, we need to talk about Erendiel because that's the actual like legend of Venus right there.
Yeah, in the mythos, that's Erendiel's ship.
Exactly. It's Vingalo with Elwing, and then they're holding the Silmaril.
Right.
And the other two Silmarils, one is in the ocean, in the bottom of the ocean, and the other one is in the earth somewhere.
Right.
So, and it's very druidic for all three planes, like the earth plane, the ocean, like under us, and the sky. And the sky one is the only one we can see, right? Meaning Erendiel. And yeah, so we definitely need to do that. Veriface says, I don't know that much about it. Okay, so Veriface, if you are curious about that, you'll want to read passages not just of Arwen and Luthien, but also of Erendiel, okay, the Mariner. That would be like, if you want to know more about that, that's what you would want to read about.
If you want me to, I can make like an article about that to list the references and so forth.
That would be amazing. Could you split the article between Arwen and, or would it be 3 articles?
I could, well, the central mythos is of Arundel and his ship, but we can do the superior and inferior conjunctions for the different people, for Luthien and Arwen. So I could make like 2 articles and put the references in. Basically,
Awesome.
is what I was thinking.
Very good. Astrophil, yes, I do astrology classes. It's been a while. I'm actually thinking about firing up my Patreon again and doing classes that would be like on Patreon, so that like it would be easy for you guys to pay, because you're already used to that, right? And so you could just pay monthly. And it could be like a revolving class. So it could be like whoever the students are, they show up and it's like, what's your question today? So we don't have to have like a formal class. Now, if you need a formal class, I mean, I have lots of ideas for you. And there's so many good things on YouTube. The tutorials are amazing right now. Like there's just so many good ones. I don't want to repeat, myself with all of that. But what I'd like to do is for people who have done YouTube university, if you will, and they know all of the things, but they just can't quite get past that place for reading charts. I know all about that, because that was my problem back in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I didn't have enough practice with actual astrologers, professional astrologers. And so that ended up, being my training, and I literally was thrown on the phones and doing readings for, like, back then, $3 a minute was crazy money. Okay. Nowadays, like, that's nothing, but back then, I mean, that was like some crazy stuff, and I felt really guilty for not being able to, or so I felt like that I wasn't able to do it, but it turned out that I was very able to do it. And the reason is because your intuition can take over and guide you, like with how to read, the next thing to read, like what's going on. But you also had a daily ritual where you were looking at the chart every day to see like what planets were doing before the phone calls started coming in. So then you kind of already knew like what kind of phone calls would come in. So yeah, we can, that could be an, go to Timing Magic, like Linktree/Timing Magic, and reach out to me. Okay. That would be amazing. I'm also Timing Magic on Instagram if you want to check that out. So awesome. Okay. So, and Dowsing is going to be classes too, and there's less good chat, like classes with that. And so I'm definitely going to be doing that as well. And I've been really a natural dowser for a really long time. I didn't know like some of the problems that people would have, because I took so easily to it, but I'm getting better at understanding like some of those things now, and I've been doing a little bit of like short videos and stuff on my channel on YouTube, which by the way is still on my Linktree, Timing Magic. You'll see it at the top of the list. And so yeah, so that's my profession, and that's how I got to Tolkien. Was I was already I was a professional astrologer, a tarot card reader, a dowser. I wasn't an herbalist yet, but I had an interest in it. And I was a Reiki 1 by the time that I met Dave and watched the movies and read the Silmarillion. So that's the next part of the story. Okay, so you guys got my spiritual and professional background first. Okay, so 2005 rolls around, and I'm living in Montana, and I'm married to Ray, Ray Allen, okay, who was my husband from 2003 until 2012 when he passed away, which was very hard for me. And there was a very hard time period in my life. Ray was like just shy of Dave's expertise with the Legendarium. He was really good with the Silmarillion and the Lost Tales. So he didn't have all of the history of Middle Earth to, you know, have access to that. But he definitely read the Silmarillion, and he was the one, when we watched the movies together, he was telling me, hey, Lisa, like, if you really think that the elves are like, you know, kind of a closer match than what you think elves are like in lore, okay, you really should read the Silmarillion. And so then he taught me about what the Silmarillion was, and like, and I hadn't even read Lord of the Rings yet, right? So I had only read The Hobbit before, and so it was life-changing. And so Ray found his crumbling copy of the Silmarillion, and that was on Beltane, so that was May 1st of 2005. And I was reading it, and I read the Ainulindalë, and I read Valaquenta, and I read the rest of the book too, but those first two books, okay, Ainulindalë, utterly chilling, the experience that I was experiencing in my body, okay. I started vibrating, and especially when I was reading passages about Varda Elentari, the Star Queen, aka Lady Elbereth, aka Star Kindler Tintale, right? She has a lot of names. Elbereth was what she went by in Lord of the Rings when Galadriel was introducing, you know, Lady Elbereth, and like that's who they call, and the elves, it was their favorite of the Valar, okay. I had total vibration, like going, what is happening to me, okay. I started looking around to see if there were other star queens that resonated with Varda Elentari, okay. I found, I mean, besides in Egypt, Nut is one of the star goddesses, okay. She's actually the goddess of the sky, where Geb, or Jeb, not sure like the pronunciation, is the god of the earth. So it's kind of the opposite, that we think of Mother Earth, Father Sky, or Grandfather Sky.
Doesn't Newt actually mean like night sky?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. So she was the sky, and the legend was that the sun was swallowed by her every morning.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Or every night, I take it back. And she rebirthed the sun like her child.
Oh, cool.
Every day. So every day the sun was born from her womb, okay? Went through the sky, okay, traveled around the sky, and then at night she swallowed the sun, okay. So that was the legend with that. And I also learned about the Star Queen resonance with like the fairy path. So there's a few different things going on here. So there's traditional fairy paths. I'm talking about the one of Cora Anderson, and it was Feri. So I have found like that they have a star queen. There was some resonance a little bit, but like nothing really hit like Varda Elentari. Okay, Varda was so much more than like all of the above, right? Like for me, like she just hit it. It was like so much about my essence, and about, like, for instance, the light in her face that was Iluvatar's original light, and she held the most of it, and that starlight was something that was like kind of resonant of that, and so we could like tune into that light through the starlight. And then later, you know, like her light ended up making, you know, the sun and the moon and the Silmarils, right? Like, so there's a whole bunch of other lore with that.
Also, interestingly, that a lot of people don't know is that Varda was the only individual Vela that Melkar was actually afraid of because of that light.
That is correct.
The other ones he could take on, but he was afraid of her.
Yes, and that should tell you how strong she is. Yeah, exactly. And especially like with Tulkas and stuff too.
Right.
Yeah, because and actually, I understand that, like with Iole, I mean, it took all of them to like trap,
Right,
you know,
right.
him
Yeah.
in the void and keep him in chains until, again, the next song. Of course, you guys read the Silmarillion, the stories in there about how that happened, but and then of course, I guess that there's different versions of that in the history of Middle Earth, you know, because there's some of those stories are retold, like the Lost Tales, right?
Yeah,
They
well, it's
have
very
versions of those
it's
stories.
for people who may be listening to this and don't know, it's very similar to the Epic of Gilgamesh. There are different versions of it. So, you know, that's it's one man wrote it
Okay.
versus an entire culture, but nevertheless, there are different versions. You
Yeah.
know.
So, so anyway, I'm reading about this, you know, I'm reading the Silmarillion. I'm totally vibing with Varda Elentari out of all of them the most. Okay. Now, later, because I became an herbalist a couple years later, I started like really like working with Vana and Yavanna, but also Este the Gentle. Like Este the Gentle to me, like because of the physical sleep and regeneration and her gray raiment, I mean, I feel like that. And plus, Melion and also Galadriel were like, you know, connected with Este the Gentle. So I definitely have a resonation also with Este the Gentle. And because I crochet, hello, right? I'm a crocheter. Like I have some resonance also with the textile, you know, like with the threads and all of those types of things, Vaire the Weaver. Okay. But I would say that if, you know, if somebody pinned me to the wall and said, you have to choose only one, it would be Varda Elentari, the Queen of the Stars. She is definitely my jam. Okay. And she has a husband named Manwe who is very fair. He rules the skies. He rules the winds. He rules the clouds. He rules the feathered ones like the birds. Okay. And out of all of the Valar, he is the one who like makes the fair judgments along with Namo in the halls of Mondos. He does because he gets the title of the doomsman. Okay, so like that's a little bit like, you know, because the fate of somebody could, you know, definitely be, you know, like I could see where that could be like a very heavy energy to weigh somebody's life and say, okay, you go to Valinor, you go to the void. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Another interesting thing about Manwe is of all the Valar, he's directly stated in several sources to be the other Valar remember the great song and you know what the plan was and what's probably going to happen as the future goes on. But Manwe has a direct link to Iru and receives messages back and forth, where the
Yeah,
other
and
ones,
he's the
yeah,
only one. And
right,
even
right,
Manwe doesn't get everything from Eru that we'd
right,
like, you
right,
know, because
right,
there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Sorry
right,
about my
right.
little system here. So I highlighted, Astrophel says, I don't work with the Valar, but I resonate with Orome because of his connection with horses. So that's pretty cool. Hang on a second. I love horses and respect them to a spiritual level, and I would say that horses are very high vibrating creatures and definitely very spiritual energy with horses. So I can totally understand
Mhm.
that. Okay. And on the note of Orome, so you may want to know this, Astrophil, he was the most, so where the elves loved Varda Elentari the most, Orome out of the Valar loved the elves the most. Okay, so you might actually, you know, remember that as well. Yes, he has Nahar, his horse, that is white and then silver at night. And he has a horn that he blows called Valaroma, too. So, yeah. Orome is who we actually work with during the Enderi, which are the middle days in, you know, in September 25th, 6th, and 7th. Okay, so those 3 days, that's the middle days. And we work with Orome because Orome traveled a lot. And those were days of traveling.
And he was the one that discovered the first, you know, the primitive elves and guided them to Valinor. So he guided them on their journey.
Right. Yes, exactly. So yeah, and she likes traveling. Okay, and you guys might have, if you guys like traveling and you like Orome energy. And by the way, Orome is also the most handsome out of all of the male Valar. Okay, so FYI. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah, he I think Orome is pretty special because I do like his horned god feeling. Like he definitely has that going on. There's a lot of resonance. And by the way, on the note of the pantheon, okay, so like we could really actually, in a sense, call this the Elven pantheon or the Quendian pantheon, okay, or the pantheon of the Eldalia, okay, because these origin stories actually were from those beings that called themselves the Quendi, and that like other people called them the Eldalia, or you know, there was the Calaquendi, which were the light elves, and then the Moraquendi, which were the darker elves. And dark doesn't mean evil here, but it definitely means that they didn't have the light of Valinor, like with the two trees and all of that. Like they were in Middle Earth and they stayed behind. They didn't go to Valinor or the Blessed Realm.
Yeah, literally it means they chose not to travel to Valinor because they preferred where they were. So
yeah, they just liked it where they were, and there was no harm in that. But the light definitely has its own qualities to like, you know, and we see examples of that in the stories as well, you know, like the kinds of decisions that are made and things like that. Like we definitely realize that that's, you know, something going on. But anyway, so what happened was I was vibrating and vibrating and vibrating, and I was like, oh, this is just fiction. Like this isn't like real, like no, this isn't. And I kept vibrating and vibrating, and I'm like, maybe this isn't fiction. Maybe this is actually a pantheon that Tolkien rediscovered, and he has been talking to these beings, and you know, and he learned the language and all of this stuff. This is just something I contemplated, and I'm like, somebody else has to have thought of this idea, because I was just thinking about, you know, 2005, I mean, the stories had been out for a long time, you know, the Silmarillion, 1977. I figured that somebody would have figured this out. Well, we did find some groups that had figured it out, but they never went to the extent of like making a spiritual path based on only the Legendarium being the basis of their path. They more like used the Legendarium as a seasoning to their cake, you know, that they had already made with paganism or theosophy or, you know, whatever it was that they were doing. So, you know, they were like adding Tolkien to their Catholicism. They were adding Tolkien to their paganism. They were adding Tolkien to their magical paths or occult or whatever it was, and they were adding it like a sprinkling on it. And I was interested in going deeper than that and like actually learning about the Legendarium, like meaning on its own, if possible, the magic and all of the energy that is contained within that. Okay. I would say definitely discovered that when I met Dave, literally about almost 2 weeks later on his birthday, 2005.
Hello.
Remember? It was your birthday.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I met Dave on his birthday, and we were connected from a gentleman that we don't have any contact with now, but if you go online, you can still see alttolkien.com, and I'm going to type it in the chat.
He had a
Oh,
really
wait, it might
expensive
be.
site at the time, from what we understand.
Yeah.
I guess the friend who helped run it died, and so he sort of distanced himself from it. That's as we
Exactly. So
understand
I
it.
hope that link works. And I don't remember if it's an HTTP or an HTTPS, meaning
I'll check it.
secured.
I'll
I
check
just
it.
typed it in the ATTP, or HTTP. It should work. So that is how I met Dave. And Dave at the time was running a group called UTolk, and UTolk had already had Adam in the group, if I remember correctly, because other people had told Adam about Dave, and so like there was
It's
a handful
possible,
of people
yeah.
back
I had
then
a
that were like, hey, like
this was
and we were all trying to
this was
figure
in the
out the
day
same mystery.
this was in the days of Yahoo groups, so I
This
had a
was in
number of
the
people
days of
join.
Yahoo groups,
Yeah.
2005. So yeah, we didn't have some of the things that we have now, like awesome live streaming on YouTube. That was not a thing yet.
I just checked the alttoken.com. It's HTTP. He didn't update for the secure HTTPS, so you may
Right.
have
So
to.
the link
Yeah,
probably works
yeah,
that's in the
yeah,
chat.
yeah.
So, okay. So you guys, that link is over in the live chat. And if you are watching the replay, we'll try to add it either into the description or in a comment after for
He
people
actually
watching the
calls his
replay.
site Middle Earth Reunion. That's what
Middle
that
Earth
meant.
Reunion. That's
Yeah.
right. So that is how we met originally. And then shortly after, like, within a couple of years, Martin lost one of his best friends that he and that best friend were all about Tolkien. So every time Martin would think about Tolkien, he'd think about his best friend and how much he missed him. And so I think he just let it kind of go because he had to process, he had a lot of grief with his best friend. And so we were writing for him and stuff like that. I had some very, I had some exploratory articles when I was like very fresh in this that I was contemplating. I was comparative religion, all of this stuff at that point. I wasn't convinced yet that it could be a standalone path, although I think that Dave knew that it could be. We just didn't have a way of doing it outwardly. Like it was more kind of trapped inside of Dave, because he just experienced it for himself, but he didn't have a way to experience that
Well,
outward.
and my attempts at trying to contact other people who thought like I did would just result in stupid jokes like, yeah,
Or they
I
were
hear,
role players. Like
yeah,
we still
role
have that
players,
problem sometimes.
or
Yeah.
I hear that J.R. Tolkien is Hobbit forming, and shit
Yeah,
like that. I'm
right.
like,
And stuff like that.
I'm not
Yeah.
interested in your little jokes, you know.
Exactly. So we had I guess, a task at hand, and we thought that if we could get into the year material, because we had directions, we had Tengwar for those directions, we had Kirith for those directions, we had the Valar themselves, we had also like the calendar, which was huge. And shoot, we just barely improved the calendar like in 2022 with more evidence of like so we're always working on the calendar apparently. But we did use the Encyclopedia of Arda calendar for many years. We made an alignment with each of the holidays. We aligned the holidays where we felt like it made sense, and it was like at the beginning of seasons or things like that. We figured out there was, Tolkien said that there were 6 seasons. They're not all equal. The 2 seasons that are summer, winter are extreme, and so there's more days in those. And then the 4 seasons that are, like 2 seasons in between that one, two in between that one, they are more fluid and a little bit faster to go through, which actually makes sense with how the earth works, by the way. So we have those really, you know, like standstill moments, like when, you know, the pendulum's ready to swing the other way, and then it really goes fast when it goes to the other extreme, and then it stays there for a while, then it goes back, and then it stays for a while. So this is kind of like the cycles of the earth. And I thought that it was very interesting that Tolkien could not, I mean, this is the other reason I think that it was channeled. I mean, this is like these people that he was like talking to and working with, like this was such a natural thing for me to go, oh yeah, it's not like in 4 equal pieces. It's not. And so that was awesome. Then the whole legend of the sun and the moon, and how the sun is male, you know, is the Maya, excuse me, Aryan. Sorry about that. Aryan, who is female. Okay, so the sun is kind of a goddess, if you will, and the moon, being Telion, was more like a god. And so you then end up finding out that many mythologies have a sun goddess and a moon god, and most of them are north of a certain latitude in Europe. Okay, so if they are the northern, like if you will, legends, okay, the northern pantheons, they have it reversed from the southern regions. And interestingly, the southern regions is where Western astrology gets most of its body of information, because, well, let's face it, you'll have better view of the sky in the southern, you know, part of, you know, like that part of the world, right?
Although
the northern part of the world doesn't
right.
see a lot, and especially, you know, in the winter, like at night, like when you are just only having stars to look at, you don't see the ecliptic or anything, you know.
The interesting thing is, if you go really far east to Japan, they have a sun goddess,
Oh, very
Amaterasu.
interesting. Yeah.
But they're also quite far north. So, you know, that may
And that is
factor in.
interesting. And
Yeah.
That is very interesting. And I wonder if
At least the northern island is, you know, if you
yeah,
get to the
well,
far
and
south,
actually, so isn't there some kind of connection with the Japanese, and then like the northern parts of like all the way over to where the Yalaric, you know,
yeah,
like
yeah, there are.
Finland,
Yeah,
the
in fact,
Sami people, and all of that.
well,
Like, isn't there some kind of
yeah,
relationship?
on their northern island, there's a native people called the Ainu, who are
Wow.
totally shamanic, and yeah,
Ainur. Oh
yeah,
wow, very interesting. Okay, and this is the genius of Tolkien, by the way,
yeah.
is that the information that he was picking up from these beings had so many resonances in this plane of existence. But I think that Tolkien was getting the original form. I don't think that he was inspired necessarily by the forms that we have. I think it was the other way around. And
Exactly.
not only that, but he actually made some new words. Like, for instance, with Wicca, we know that Letha, they literally like took from The Hobbit for Midsummer.
Yeah, and you know, most Wiccans will defend their term to the death. Tolkien had
Yeah,
nothing to do with it. And
well,
yeah,
thank you, John Michael Greer, for setting the record straight,
yeah,
because he actually went on to, you know, so Llewellyn has like a Wikipedia. Okay, it's a mashup of Wicca and Wikipedia, and that particular website has a lot of references where things come from, and he literally admits that Letha comes from Tolkien. He literally says it. So there you go. Astrophel says the Ainu people also got their own dog breed called Hokkaido.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
A random fact. Awesome. Thank you. That's very cool. So yeah, and actually, I mean, I can't follow that up with anything, But I was thinking about, like, you know, is there any dog references? I mean, I don't think there is, but
Well, in the Legendarium, of course, there's Huon, the great
I was gonna say
hound of
Huon, yeah,
Ornament. Yeah, but
the Hound and all of
yeah,
the, yeah, definitely that's a very, and that's kind of the therianthropy thing that we talked about in your interview, Dave.
right.
Yeah, so I remember about that. So, okay, so basically, Dave and I, because Dave's knowledge of the Legendarium was so vast compared to mine, and he had read the entire thing many times. I had only read the Silmarillion. We were trying to create a calendar, and so we had a good trial run of a calendar, because I was doing some work with some other people that had done their own work, but then it turned out that they had too many Wiccan references or other things that were not Legendarium. And so, you know, Dave was like, hey, Lisa, you know, we actually really need to, you know, redo the calendar so that it actually works with the Legendarium. And I said, you're right, we do. And I wouldn't know without you telling me, because I haven't read the whole Legendarium yet. So we sat down, and what we did was we translated every single month, and with like astrological knowledge, with other thing, you know, other like knowledges that I had, like we were managing to put a calendar together, but the Legendarium was the first reference. So in other words, the reason that we have Varda Elantari's month in June is because there's literally a passage in the lore that talks about her celebrating the full moon and dancing in the moonlight. Okay.
At midsummer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and with to Varda, okay, like meaning for Luthien dancing
Right.
at mid, and like talking to Varda. Okay, so
And that's why, yeah, in general, the reason that a lot of the Valar are placed where they are, and this is what some people don't get, and I've tried to explain it. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite get across. We use the preponderance of the evidence method, just like lawyers use, where you don't know if the criminal actually did this or not because you don't have a video of him, but the evidence really points in that direction.
right,
You know,
right.
that's the whole idea.
Well, and you had a lot more experience with this, in that, like, for instance, Dave, and we talked about this in your video as well, like when we were rounding out the calendar and we realized that there were 7 holidays that Tolkien had.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we also didn't have a way to celebrate the first day of winter. And
Right,
it turned
right.
out that you coincidentally had looked at a story in the Legendarium where they are describing the astronomy in the sky, and being that you're an amateur astronomer, you recognized what time of the year that was.
Varda describes it exactly where the constellations are, so
Yes,
all you have to do is
and
use a
talked
program to
about
match
the
it up.
awakening of the
Yeah,
elves.
yeah.
Okay, so we then created the Elven Awakening holiday, and we put it on the first day of winter, when that whole story would line up like perfectly. And so that's why we have 8 holidays rather than 7 in the calendar, and I think it works very well. It's a little bit like not at the time of Samhain, okay, because of the unequal sizes of the seasons. But I actually think it works better at November 21st, and you know, and then also, for instance, the opposite holiday of Nost na Lothion being on the opposite, you know, side of the calendar as the first day of flowers, and kind of like the Elven
Right,
melting.
and if you're I'm both an amateur astronomer and an amateur anthropologist, so I actually found lore in some native cultures here in North America that on November 21st, the Pleiades star cluster culminates at midnight, and the native
Yeah,
people
it's the
use that as,
highest point. Yeah.
yeah, they use that as, okay, it's only a month till midwinter. So we got to get
Right.
our stores and stuff in, right, you know, right now, you know, this is the last
Yes.
time.
It was definitely a time marker. And in other cultures too, it is.
Right.
where
Right.
they have the Pleiades as a marker. And even in tropical cultures, we found out from
True.
Morgan
Yeah.
Daimler that
Hmm.
she's actually found some tropical cultures that have this particular marker. And they also, interestingly, have the opposite marker around May 21st.
Right. Yeah. And I put some of that information that we discovered there
Is
in
that in
my
your document, like your
yeah,
white paper?
yeah, it's in my
And we talked about that in the calendar video. Is that correct?
I think so. It's in my Legendarium Stars document. I think we put that
Yeah,
in
okay.
the calendar.
Okay.
We also
And I think that
did a
we have
separate
that
video for it.
attached to the calendar video. So if you guys are looking around for the
Yeah.
calendar video here on the channel, it's probably that one. Okay. And we did so we did two of them. We did an original one and then we did an updated one. And the updated one, we actually decided to undo the calendar that we had used for a long time, which was when we designated the Maiar to the 13th month, like, you know, with the moon being the 13th month. And so therefore, like, it's not really matched with anything.
Right.
And sometimes we wouldn't even have a celebration because of the way the calendar was. Well, not only did you fix the calendar, Dave, to be where it's like way more regular, so it would even be longer, that we would never resonate with the Maiar or the Fey beings or anything. What we decided to do then was match that up with the Nost Na Lothion holiday because of Tin Fang Warble. And
Right. So now we
so,
honor the Fae each
yes,
year. So yeah.
exactly. So now we have that at once a year at the quote Elven Beltane unquote Nos Na Lothion, which is the birth of the flowers. Okay, and that is also in the Silmarillion. And so again, these are all things that, you know, like have unfolded over time. Like we had most of it by the time that 2006, 2009, you know, had rolled around, but we were still fine tuning. You know, Dave always finds things because he's always reading the lore. He's always looking at stuff. And then he says, hey, we need, you know, so we modify it because we want the path to be as true to the legendarium as possible.
Well, and
But
also
without Tolkien having giving us like instruction on how to make it a spiritual path, because that was not what he was doing. He was writing stories. He wasn't thinking that people like us later would, you know, like say, hey, you know, this is an actual pantheon. This is an actual, you know, like body
yeah,
of material. This is an actual like lost people. This is an actual language. This is an actual, and interestingly, on the language note, it's kind of funny, like, you know, the guy who, you know, like Edward, who says, you know, oh, everybody like can't do the language, and you know, he's allowed his opinion, but even he thinks that, you know, that it's kind of uncanny how Tolkien's created languages match the patterning of natural languages. And I'm kind of going, yeah, you think, right? Meaning he channeled them. Okay, like it's so obvious to me. But anyway,
well,
that's what I think.
The problem with that, and I'm not going to. I have a whole Edward thing, but I'm not going to
Well,
go into
it's not.
So,
it's not relevant to that. But what I'm
yeah.
saying is that we are definitely trying to match the material in the legendarium to our practice in every way we can.
Right. It's like the thing about Edward, he's an atheist and doesn't have any.
Yeah, he's not approaching the material
I mean,
from a spiritual lens at all, really.
Right. And
Yeah.
you know, that's fine. I have atheistic tendencies, but I'm also
Yeah.
a shaman at the same time, so I can directly detect spirits and things like that. So I have from my point of view, I have an evolutionary advantage over just an atheist person. But yeah, I can directly detect what Tolkien was doing. You know, he was a myth maker. He was making a mythology. You know,
I don't think that my entire body would have been vibrating for days at a time if it was just nothing.
If it was a regular story like a Stephen King story, who's a really popular writer, but he doesn't have Tolkien's, you know.
But I never vibrated.
Yeah.
I never vibrated with Chronicles of Narnia. as a for instance.
Right.
They're great stories, but it's mentally like more, it's more in the mental realm for me. This was physical. This was almost like, like if I had clairaudience, it would have been like my cells, all of my cells in my body were singing.
Right.
That's how it was like. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was like, and wait, how did the universe start according to Tolkien? Singing. Okay.
The song, yeah.
The song of the
song.
Ainur. Okay. It was literally, I was having that moment in my body. Okay.
And
I've never had that feeling again.
Okay. When I
and it's never been like that intense ever. So I knew that this was my path. And then over the years, so Dave, go ahead and mention what you were going to mention, because it was making me lead to something else that I wanted to tell the audience. But you first.
I was just going to say, when I first encountered the deep lore of Tolkien's Legendary, and when the Silmarillion came out, when it was published in 1977, and to me, that was like a lightning bolt. That was to me that was literally a holy book, like some people view the Bible or the Quran or the Hindu
and that's how I felt
epics
too with
or
the
whatever.
Silmarillion. Yeah.
But and so I knew it wasn't just well, this is just a story that some dude wrote and it doesn't really mean anything. You can use it as toilet paper maybe, but it ain't worth much more than that. Like a lot of people seem to think. No, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do feel like that people were really inspired by the spirituality, demonstrated, but they just weren't going far enough.
They are. They
just wanted it to be like a flavor of the day in their magic practice.
Yeah, they were obviously inspired. It obviously got to them in some fashion, but they didn't go far enough. They just stopped. I don't know. Maybe they didn't know how to go any further. I don't know.
And that's possible because, Dave, it wasn't easy even for us to go this far. So
that's true.
Possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is possible. And maybe it wasn't their interest either. Like maybe it was just a cool way for them to see a deeper meaning in their own path, but not having to commit to it, so they could explore it in the themes of it, but then just stay with paganism or Catholicism or whatever they were doing.
Well, I've read parts of the Mahabharata. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
And it's interesting, but I don't want to become Hindu.
Okay. That is something that I've faced a few times in my life. So one of the things when I was studying astrology, as you can imagine, Vedic astrology, or it's also called Jyotish. Okay.
Right, Jyotish, yeah. I've seen their software.
Has visited me many times. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had people who were past life readers read me, and they saw me as a Vedic astrologer in a different life as a male. Like I'd ride a camel all the way across India to these wealthy people's houses and do their astrology, and they'd feed me and do all of this stuff. So, it's like I'm going, wait a minute, I'm traveling around right now. I'm helping people. I'm doing astrology still. I'm going, this is kind of repeating a little bit, but so, here, Faith says, when I first read Lord of the Rings, it affected me emotionally. I cried when the books were done, and then it lay dormant. Years later, the Fellowship, it activated. So you're talking about Fellowship, the movie. Is that correct? Is that what you mean by that, Faith? And I did not have that experience yet until I read the Silmarillion. That was when I loved all of the energy of everything. Like I could feel it, but it wasn't enough to make me say, okay, I am going to commit to a spiritual path based on Tolkien's Legendarium. I wasn't there yet until, and she says that is correct. Okay. So, it had to be the Silmarillion for me, and then it was the vibration. It was literally like my cells were, my DNA was like, hey, you hit pay dirt. Okay. And I actually, you know, like on the discussion of DNA and what that means, we notice in the stories with the Silmarillion that we go into very great detail about the elves and the awakening and their creation and all of the things. And Eru made the men, but in the stories, they just kind of show up. So we don't really know that much about the origins of men. Like they just kind of organically show up in the stories. Like they just one day there's men. So there's a lot of theories about it. So what it is, and here's the main two theories about this. So one theory is that Eru Ilúvatar created elves and created men, meaning two different creations. Another viewpoint of that, and you know, maybe it's valid, maybe it's not. Okay, so I mean, if we have some passages, Dave, that would be great. But there are people that believe that the elves and the men, like in a way, were the same, if you will, the creation. And what happened is they were elven in their expression when the first part of the song happened. And the second part of the song, because that was the time of the elves. And then the third part of the song, that is the time of men. So that it was more of like an evolved energy had happened. And some men have, you know, some elves that wanted to remain elven, they had to leave the plane and either disappear into the plants, okay, and into the earth, or go to Valinor, okay, because that was the only place where they could exist at the time of the Third Age, okay. And that was the unfolding of the third song. And if you guys read the Silmarillion, you'll notice that the song is in 3 parts. The first part is the most light part. It's the most original, like all of the creation. It's kind of the Valar and them making the earth and all the stories about that. Then the second part was the elves and the elven awakening, okay? Third part is when men were, and that was when Lord of the Rings were, like it was the age of men. So all the elves had to leave Middle Earth, okay? Because they couldn't hang with the vibration anymore. The vibration in the third song was already wackadoo, okay? Because of the Dark One having interrupted the song by the time, and like you couldn't undo it, right? So it had its own trajectory. And then Eru Ilúvatar said, Ea, in other words, let it be. So all of the songs then became this plane, and the Valar shaped the earth, but Ilúvatar made elves and made men. So we could either say that elves and men have the same DNA, but like just certain parts are activated or what have you, or we could say elves were one being and men were another being, and they did have half elven, right? Like Elrond is a great example of that. Okay, they were half elven, and they had a choice of whether they wanted to be elves or men, okay, when they were born, because they had both DNAs or both things. So it's possible that only some humans have elven resonance, okay, and it's possible that humans have dwarven resonance, or you know, other things. Like, I mean, these things are all possible, right?
Well, what I wanted to, you covered a lot of ground there.
Okay.
Do you want me to speak on any of it, or should I pass
do,
over to
and I want you to hang on, because I do want to read what Vera Faith said first. I want you to talk about this, though.
Okay.
Okay, Vera Faith says, but then I found you guys, and it resonated with me, but I had no idea why. What I mean by that is my interest was so strong, unlike any other set of books. Very good. Astrofel says, I don't remember exactly how I got into elven spirituality. or even into Lord of the Rings books. But what really locked me in was a Song of Durin song cover by hang on, I don't know how to say her name. Uriel? Is that how you say it? I hope I'm not slaughtering that. I don't speak Elvish. It's I have like where I try to,
Me
but
neither.
Elven, yeah. So Elven, of course it's Elven. Okay, so that's so interesting. So the Song of Durin has a lot to do with, oh, she says Iriel. Okay, so the U is silent, I guess. Okay. I'll take it. That's much easier. Okay. So that is like a dwarven resonance. Okay. So Astrophil, would you say that you resonate with the dwarven energies a lot? Or I'm just curious about that. Okay. While she's typing, Dave, I definitely want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, well, you covered a lot of ground. So and some of it, as you know, I'm a visual thinker, not a verbal one, so I may have forgotten some of what you said. So,
Okay.
but however, Tolkien directly stated in letters, and I could find the letter if I had my search thing up,
no, that's
I'm
fine. I mean, you already know it, and we can get the reference later and put it in the comments.
But Tolkien directly stated that humans and the Quenya, what most people call elves, are actually the same species. It's just that the elves have well, I can tell you technically what's happening. They don't have mitochondrial telomere shortening, so they have an unlimited lifespan, is what's technically going on.
Okay,
he didn't know that. He didn't know that at the time, but that's the main difference. But they are the same species, so they couldn't interbreed and have children. It just wouldn't work. It would be like trying to mate with a horse. Not going to work.
Correct. Yeah, no, and that is something that I thought that's why they're kind of related. I mean, in that if they could even have children that are half elves, half men, like there's something going on there that is not like a typical, because otherwise it wouldn't be able to work.
That was his actual quote. They are obviously the same species and they cannot interbreed and have children. That's
and that makes sense about why they just show up instead of like being that, oh, here's where the men were introduced. So really it's elves and men were created, meaning as the same being, but like the expression of them changed over time during the unfoldment of the songs.
And he also explains that in another letter that psychologically humans have more of a tendency toward chaos and disorder. Well, you can see that just by looking at the daily news.
We can see it in the world.
Whereas elves had more of a tendency toward order and not a tendency toward not being corrupted by things.
Right. So that's they like had a lot more purity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main psychological difference. Now, of course, you have individuals that can go one way or the other. You have
we can definitely see that there was some exceptions to that rule. How about well, for one exception, we could say Feanor, even though he was a freaking genius, he was nuts.
Yes, his genius went to his head, and he became narcissistic as fuck. I mean,
and he was responsible for a lot of elves dying.
Right.
And elves are supposed to live forever, so that's pretty deep right there. Okay.
That's why the whole kinslaying, where he killed the Talari with their ships, was such a big deal. Because that wasn't supposed to happen in Valinor. Essentially, I mean, it happened in Tol Eressëa, which was just off the coast, but nevertheless, it was essentially in the Valar's domain.
Very interesting. So, Dave, by that statement in the letters, which I absolutely believe you. Okay, I know that you will have a reference, like point, and we can go to that reference. I believe you. So, would you say then that all humans have access to the elven expression of their energy if they so feel drawn to that?
I have to answer not just as a legendarium expert, also as a shaman, because each human has a different tendency. You would call it a different energy. I would call it a different pattern. Some may very much wish to do that, but have a lot more difficulty accessing it than somebody else would. So I would say the capability is there, but the probability might differ between individuals.
That's what I think too. And even over time, like that, like, so for instance, if it's not exercised by many generations, like it just fades into the background and very inaccessible.
If you're born in the say you were born with as a newborn baby with what you might call an elven affinity, that's like, but you were born in the hood and you're hanging banging and singing by the time you're 15 years old.
That would not be a good expression. Okay. Yeah. No, seriously. I mean, so even in one lifetime, but imagine, like, generation after generation after generation, like those kinds of things. And boy, that would be really, really far back to try to have to reach that. But what I know about DNA is that it seems like there's always like even if the switch is off, the switch is still there.
Yeah, it's called epigenetics. The various portions turn on and off depending on environmental factors.
So that's a really interesting point. So basically what it is that we exist for the few people who have that part of their DNA lit up in some fashion, is all I got to say. So that's awesome. And on that note, Astrofel says it was actually because the way she sang it, it was so angelic and it sounded like it was elven oriented. I could link the cover video if you like, so you can listen to where we can. I know about that video. I can link it in the comments later. I know what you're talking about. Oh, goodness.
I haven't actually seen it, so if you could like put it in the comments or something, because I haven't seen it. I'm not
and I will definitely do that. So she says that it was beautiful and brought her to tears. That's what she says.
Oh, cool. Yeah. See, I'm not much of a Tolkien music aficionado. For whatever reason, I'm into more, Tool stuff like that.
I understand. But I have turned you on to, like, Anya and Delirium and like some ethereal, but it's like awesome stuff. Like, 'cause there's some stuff out there that's really amazing, and just it's so, it deeply resonates, like, to me with if it's not Elven, it sure gets very close to what I could imagine Elven is.
Right.
That Anaron song that Anya did in the movie with Arwen and Aragorn on the bridge is utterly just, it's so good. Okay. There are definitely some moments, like song-wise, that just, they really did the music in, on that note, the music even in the other one is really good. Unfortunately, they screwed up a lot of other stuff, but
well, that's because Bear McCreary
the music in the movie, like the Peter Jackson movies 20 years ago, was amazing. Is amazing. There was definitely no problem with that. So she says, I loved Anya ever since I first heard her. Oh, me too. And she is an angel, definitely, on this planet. We don't deserve her. I definitely understand that. You know what? We can all hang out in her castle though, and I think she's on the Waterford coast, and like she just lives with her piano and cats in a castle, and I'm like, man, I could do that.
I think the reason awesome. I think the reason, Lisa, why you like even Amazon's Rings of Prime music is because Bear McCreary was doing
Of
it, and
course. Well, and he
he's a
was
very skillful
fantastic
dude.
with
Yeah,
all of those soundtracks. Oh my God,
yeah.
Battlestar Galactica. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
Battlestar Galactica. I'm more of a sci-fi dude than I'm a fantasy dude. So yeah, Battlestar Galactica.
That
That I mean,
music is
yeah,
amazing, and you already know about how I feel about the pirate show of all damn things,
yeah,
but
yeah. Black
oh, the
Sails.
music is so amazing.
I
It's
think
just great.
I think the pirate show is called Black Sails,
It
as I
is.
remember it.
Black
Okay, yeah,
Sails, if you guys
yeah,
look up
yeah.
theme of Black Sails and watch that video, and so like then they also like do the, like, I don't know if it's CG or what, but the scrimshaw that was on that shit. Oh my God. It's like
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
look at that and
Um,
then you like listen to the music and you can really like just, I mean, it's very evocative of the time, I think.
and I really like that show too because I'm a digital pirate, so a little bit different than the ones on the ships, but nevertheless.
Rock and roll. That's awesome. So, okay. So we did unpack a lot with the elves and men, and there are people who felt that they were separate races. There's people that feel that they were the same race and just a different expression by the time that the third song rolled around, and how it, like evolved into that. So I kind of think that that's what it is too, and I'm glad that you knew of a letters reference that supports that, because that's kind of what I've always felt.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and that's a direct statement, and
yeah,
also it to some extent, same or different depends upon how you define same or different.
yeah.
It's like Bill Clinton with his. It depends upon what the meaning of is. You know.
Yes, except that we're not guilty. Oh my gosh, that's great. So yeah, yeah, that's a subject we'll stay far away from right now.
Well,
Okay.
and the only reason I mentioned because as a mathematician, it's very important how you define things, and
Yeah,
you can get into
that's true.
these these overlap boundaries, and that's where I think a lot of people get into trouble, So
Right. Yeah. So, if you remember anything else, Dave, you can, prompt me. What I'm going to do is tell the audience, because I had a question that was posed to me prior to the video, which was,
oh yeah,
how did
sure.
I get my name? And, like all of that. Okay. So I did want to talk about that. So I was using a name that was my children's names combined when I was doing my crochet business. Because, oh, I forgot to tell you, I have an OG crochet business from the web, like the ancient web back in the day of like 2000. Okay. I got the domain name Crochet Goddess, but I wanted to name it after my kids. So I called my business Air Tiana Crochet. So my kids' names are Aaron and Christiana. So I just stuck Air Tiana and stuck it together. Many years later, I was getting henna on my hand in North Carolina, actually, and the lady who was doing it says, "Oh, Arti, Aarti means light or a lamp in Hindu, right?" I'm like, "Oh, that's very interesting." I said, I definitely resonate with light and being a lamp and a holder of light. Okay, I could do that, right? And so later, when I started co-founding the path, and by the way, around the same time period, I was getting published with Llewellyn with Airtiana as my author name. Okay, and that was the only time I ever used Airtiana. After that, I started using my Elven name, Calantirniel, and I'm going to tell you about like that in a moment. But I was using Airtiana just for one article. Okay, and that was my first article that I ever published with Llewellyn in 2007, but I submitted it in 2006, and that's when I received my name. So when I received my name, we were doing, I don't know, AOL chat, MSN chat, you know, like the chat of all chats, like, you know, Yahoo chat, you know, all of the chats, right? Remember how, like, and then you can combine them, and then they were all like, you know, you could be, you know, MSN chat, Yahoo chat, AOL chat. There was a few
so
other
it was the era. It was the era of the billion chat clients.
Yes, yes, there were so many. Okay, and so one of those chat clients, okay, I met a Netherlands girl who happened to have my birthday, but rather than 1964, hers was in 1985. And she went by the name Cyllwen, Cyllwen. And I remembered her, you know, her, I guess, like, legal name, you know, like, it was like, I mailed something to her, and I don't remember, but I'd have to, like, go back in the archives. I might not be able to find it again. But Cyllwen she had studied Sindarin, which is the language that was in the Lord of the Rings movie. She had studied that quite well, and had, like, David Salo's book, which is what they were using for the movie dialogue and some other things, right? And I told her, man, it would be really cool if I knew my Elvish name. And she says, well, what's your real name? And I said, Lisa. And then she told me what it was, and I'm like, no, that doesn't sound right. And I'm sure you could find it on one of those Elven name sites that that you could find online. And then she says, well, what else do you use? And I said, well, you know, it's funny. I use Ertiana, and Erti apparently means a lamp or a light. Okay. And Anna, well, what is that? So we looked that up, and, you know, it could be a version of Hannah. It could be like all these things, and it meant gift. Okay. So I said, I like the idea of being like a gift of light. And she says, well, but you're not just the light. Like, you are a guardian, like, you're a holder, you're a container of light, right? Like, it's a guardian of light. And I'm like, okay, I like that. So she came up with Calantirniel, and actually, I think she even came up with the hard version, which is Galadriel. And I didn't like that one, and it was too close to Galadriel. I didn't like that one. I liked the softer sounding one. Okay, so that is how Calantirniel came, and it came through Cyllwen, and it means the guardian of the gift of light, and it could be light, and it could be starlight, and also EL endings often are female names in the Elven, you know, culture. So I thought, this works, okay, and I like it, and I've been Calantirniel since. And to my knowing, nobody else has stolen my name. And if they have, I don't know about them. Like, they're pretty invisible, right? I don't know about them. So I like that, and I liked it better than, like, say, using one of the character names in the stories, because I didn't feel like it was right for me to, like, name myself Varda. Really, like, nobody, you know, like, really, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted my own name. I wanted something that was you know, pretty unique there. And the other thing is later I ended up with a title, and that happened in a weird way, because we used to get these requests online a lot more frequently back then. But I would get, like, you know, hey, I want to be an Elven High Priestess, you know, what do I do?
Oh, remember that, yeah.
And I would send them a copy of the Legendarium in PDF and say, read this, you'll be great. I swear that's what I did.
It's like
and by the way, I'm not a high priestess. Okay, so and then I thought, well, shit, man, I need a title. Okay, so then what I did, and I'll go to the forums because I had to change my stuff recently.
I just want to comment there that the way that people would react. There was a Seinfeld episode where George wanted to convert to the religion of Latvian Orthodox to get this girl who was of that religion, and and the priest says, first you have to familiarize yourself with these texts, and he puts like a whole stack of books in front of George. George says, isn't there like an express conversion method? That's the way the people would react.
Weird. Okay, so this is strange. I'm not able to access the forum right now. Hang on a second.
Unless it's offline. I mean, sometimes the server does go offline, but
it must be because I can't get it. And what it says is that you can't look at this web or whatever. And I'm like, gosh dang it. So my old title used to be Envinyataril Lótelenólë, and the Envinyanis was changed to something. It's like Envinyanon or something like that. So I was going to go get the actual name. I have it on the forum.
Did you just type in forum.westofwest.org?
I did, and it went to a page that says DNS error assist.att.net.
Oh, okay, because I can see it here, so I don't.
Oh, okay. Can you go find a thread that Calantirniel did, and then go see what my my title is at the bottom of my, because I have the title.
Yeah, just a second. I will.
So I'm gonna type. I'll type it in the chat. So the old name was Envin. Okay, old title name, I should say. Title.
I got it logged
name. Envinyataril Lótelenólë.
Let's see.
And I can't put the accent marks on it, like on the chat, but I'll find the stuff and I'll put it in the comments later. But what that means is that I'm a healer that uses the deep lore and wisdom of the stars, astrology, and the flowers, plants, herbalist. Okay.
Here it is.
And I like the way that it sounded. I just wanted to be like a person that was a lore, like of my own lore, but the meaning, because you know, Dave is the lore master, meaning the legendarium lore master. The lore that I bring in is of the stars and of the flowers, meaning the plants. Okay.
I'll put it in our chat here.
Oh, the private chat? Okay, I'll switch over to that then.
Yeah, just a second here. Private chat. You had a whole thing here, so I'll just put this in. There.
That's right. Envinyataril. That's right. Or Envinyataril. That's it. I couldn't remember what it was because I haven't used it. Okay, hang on. I'm copying it, but it's.
I was going to say you haven't used that for a long time, as I remember it, but.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm gonna put this into the comments. Okay, paste. Okay, Envinyataril Lótelenólë. So yeah, that's that. It's spelled correctly, everything, and it has all the accent marks and everything. So thank you for helping me do that.
Right.
I appreciate that. And yeah, so Calantirniel, okay, means the guardian of the gift of light, and that could mean starlight. And I'll put like lady in the front because it's also a feminine name. So I'll put that as well. So, because some people had asked me about that, and I thought that it would be a good idea to answer their question on here and how I got the name. So I got that name in 2006, and I've been using it since. And also, you know, my little eBay star, you know, I used to wear an Isis pendant because I was, at the time, I was actually resonating more with the Egyptian pantheon than any of the other ones. I was working with them quite a bit. Okay. I still like the Egyptian pantheon. I still like Isis and all of this stuff. But once I started working with Varda Elantari, I didn't miss working with the Egyptian pantheon. I didn't miss working with the Druidic pantheon, because I still work sometimes with the Morrigan energy and things like that. And like DeKindre was talking about, like with his interview, where he said that he would work with dragon energy, but he would do so outside of the context of the legendarium and the path, because in Tolkien's path, the dragon energy is like, it's a chaos. It's right. It can be like unraveling everything, what you do and all of the stuff. So if he wants to manifest, he needs to access a different energy that Tolkien wasn't accessing when he was bringing forth this material. So it's just like, you just go somewhere else. And by the way, in this path, you guys maybe noticed that we welcome everyone on a loving expression of the path. And that means you can be Christian, and you will not have to forfeit your Christianity. You can be pagan, and you don't have to forfeit your paganism. Okay. But when you're practicing the legendarium path, okay, when you are practicing the way of Arda's lore that used to be called Tia Eldalieva, the Elven spiritual path, we want it to be of the path. In other words, we don't want to mix everything in and just make a harem scarum. If you guys want a mixing together, you can visit the Silver Elves. They mix things all day long.
And are fine with it, you know.
And they're fine with it. Yeah. Like they don't have a problem. And part of it is that I think because their whole thing was on their own visions of their own thing anyway. And I think that it was more about like the unfoldment of their vision, and maybe like people that resonate, like bring more to it. And so they are open to a body of material that maybe is channeled by not just them, but other people, and that they can, you know, and by the way, that's cool. Like they can do that, but that's not what we're doing. Okay. So.
Plus we don't have to, we would be replicating their effort if we did that, you know.
So I forgot to highlight, that's my old title name. And then, so actually, before I do that, this is when I was talking about Calantirniel means the Lady Guardian of the Gift of Light, or Starlight, depending on your point of view. That is in Sindarin. Okay. Envinyataril Lótelenólë is Quenya. Okay, so it's the older language. It's a healer using deep wisdom from the flowers and the stars. Okay, I have to call back my client. He thought that we'd be done by now. No, not yet. I'll call him back. So, and then the old way that I had it was from my own, you know, because I didn't know how to do Elvish construction the same way that other people do. This was the best that I could do at the time. So I changed it to Envinyataril, and I need to keep remembering that, because that was only a more recent change. Like really within the last year or two, like, and I don't use my title all the time because people don't ask me. Like, they're just like, oh yeah, you know, Calantirniel, she's on YouTube, you know what I mean? And so they don't really ask me, but this is my quote title. Okay. And I consider myself a co-founder, and meaning equal co-founder. I don't consider myself, you know, higher up than anybody. And the way that I always envision this path working, and it really works well. And Dave understands me, and thankfully Dekindre understands me, and we all understand each other, and it's awesome, and I love it. And that is that we kind of all are kind of leader type people, and so we have more of a kind of a King Arthur round table, when it comes to the leadership. Like okay, so Dekindre has the title of president, okay, but he doesn't like look at me as I'm less than him, because he's the president. He doesn't look at Dave like that. Dave doesn't look at me like that. He doesn't look at Dekindre like that. Like we all look at each other like for equals, but that we have different strengths.
Yeah, we
like,
all have
for
different
what we
talents,
do.
so
different talents, different strengths, and different personalities and different needs. Okay, like so
right.
For instance, like when Dave had his heart attack, I mean, oh my God, like we have to take a lot off of Dave's plate now. Okay, so if you guys like out there are going, hey, Dave never talks to me anymore. Yeah, because his energy is like, he only has so much energy, and he's doing a lot of work right now towards creating documents, and
Right,
we're
a lot of
trying to
articles.
create more content for the internet. And so, we're going to be like rolling out like more, more of these videos. And so, yeah, we just wanted to tell you guys what's going on. And if you guys have any questions for me, like, because I think that I covered quite a bit of ground. We've went through a lot of ups and downs. We've had a lot of people come in. We've had a lot of people leave. We have a lot of people that have still stayed. Okay. We became a nonprofit in 2020. We started that process in 2019. Dekindre was actually our largest donor at the time, which ended up being serendipitous that he would later become our board member and then our president in last year. And so we've had a lot of changes over the time, and then of course we started doing more live streams once we figured out how to do that, like on YouTube, because I wasn't really thrilled with the Facebook platform and the inability to find our rituals. I wanted them in YouTube, and then like StreamYard was the way to do this. So that's why we see powered by StreamYard. If it wasn't for StreamYard, I would not be able to do this, because the back end of the OBS software that is YouTube is disastrous to have to learn. If you're not like, a geek, okay, you can't do it. And so StreamYard makes that totally easier. And that's why we use it. Okay.
Even if you are, I kind of am, but even if you are, it's labyrinthine, weird.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So if you guys have questions, you can type them in the chat. If you're watching the replay, certainly just type them into the comments, or, you can chat with me on Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger or email or whatever. And you can reach us through any of the things on Linktree. We have the link down below, but you know what? I'll put it in the chat window anyway.
Me, after our broadcast here, I want to talk to you about like setting up a community interaction thing, that one.
Well, we started to create the social groups. And that would have been on Google Meet, and we ran into some problems with I guess structure of that, and so we need a way to make sure that everybody gets a turn, and that everybody is free to speak with like when they come, and that it's like an actual discussion, instead of like being kind of like overtaken by like maybe a person who might have like lots of things that they need to discuss, but then like they literally take over the conversation and don't let other people have a turn.
Some ideas about different platforms for that.
And then also like maybe some different platforms. So we are still working on the curriculum for the path, because like as we have expanded, and you guys know about this, we became the Way of Arda's Lore, and we're going to be changing our name and everything when we do the legal changes. we haven't done the legal changes yet because we need more money, and we're just gonna wait. Like, you know, we're not gonna ask you guys like, hey, like we need more right now. I wanted to wait till we had more money also for our Septiquitra necklaces too, so that we could, you know, have those out for the patrons and everything. Like, that's something I still want to do. We're still looking at that, hopefully for the springtime. We're gonna see. Okay. Astrophil says, oh wait, and I forgot to link tree, and that's our Elven spiritual path. So just reach out to me if you have to. Okay. Astrophil says, rituals done by streams like this is very convenient because when let's say the next E-Seal comes around, I can watch and rewatch that type of, yes, that is true.
Right.
And I do try to live stream here as much as possible, because it is easier for giving you guys a YouTube link, and then, you know, you guys have the YouTube link and you always have that. And you can be a free member, you can be a paid member, and you could be like a higher paid member. Okay. And that's how like it works on Patreon now. So and actually, I'm actually thinking about, like, you know, kind of getting rid of MailChimp, because they're just suck. Okay. Like, I don't like them. I want to take the mailing list though, and put it into the free members of Patreon. And I don't know if I can do that. Like, I would like to just be able to communicate with everybody on Patreon. You know, get an account on Patreon, make a free account, you know. So I'm actually thinking about like making that email and making it to be where it's delivered to everybody, you know, that can see it. I also thought for sure, like, to follow up with the community, like, you know, maybe one email at a time and say, hey, you know, like, this is Lisa, we emailed you from MailChimp, but we're doing this, and if you want news from us, sign up free here with your Patreon account, and like do it that way. We're trying to make the material like more available for people who are at the free level, and then people who are paying, like, we want them to have benefits, but we want them to have the benefits of, like, you know, like one of the star necklaces when we get them, things like that. Like, we want you guys to have merch, right? So because I don't want to keep away any of the teachings from anybody. Like, I just want, like, people that are supporting us to, like, you know, that we say thank you in a way that, like, is tangible. And you know, I'm still looking forward to receiving you know, like a mock-up or like of the necklaces once we get that whole thing like looked at. And the shipping is so prohibitive. Otherwise, I would just get a little bit at a time and have them shipped from India. But nope, I'm going to have them all shipped at one time. And so we'll wait for that. I think hopefully we'll have enough money by the spring, and it's not quite spring yet. So there we go. Awesome. Astrophil, thank you for letting us know that you prefer, you know, YouTube. And yes, Google Meet, we end up not recording. We want that to be a safe space for people that want to tell us things without being recorded, and like other people listening, and, you know, like out of context. And so we wanted it to be like kind of a safe place for people to just chat and stuff and get to know us, and, you know, stuff like that. But classes and stuff like that, yeah, we'll probably still have on YouTube or the back end of Patreon. And Vera Faith says, I can wait, but I will be happy when I get those necklaces. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So definitely. So no, you don't have to pay for Google Meet. We do. Okay. So if you guys want to know how that works, Google Meet charges us like for a suite like of services, but Google Meet is the main one that we use. It charges like $8 a month or something like that. It's very reasonable. So, but we pay that. So you guys don't have to pay that. Okay. We're just letting you know. And we made it to be where we could have like long meetings. We could record whenever we want. And it was just easier and a lot cheaper than Zoom, actually. So, I guess that Zoom, you know, last I heard, they have a $12 a month plan now or something like that. Like, remember when it started out and it was like $50 a month? And we're like, we're not going to pay $50 a month for a Zoom. No, that's not going to happen, you know. So awesome, you guys. So if you have any other questions of me, like, or of, you know, like my background, my path, like how I came here, and oh, and I actually didn't really talk about this, but I guess I should say something. So I became a Llewellyn author in 2007, like when the book was published. But there's also several things that I have published with Llewellyn as well as Moon Books in traditional publishing that have to do with the Elven path. So, you know, we actually, from traditional publishing, have kind of a track record, so that people know who we are and that we have been around for as long as we have been around. And Dekindre and I are actually entertaining looking at potentially publishing like an entire ritual book. Aren't you, like, really, right? An entire ritual book so that people could buy that book and then do the rituals in it, like at the certain times, meaning the solar holidays, okay, all 7 plus the 8th one that we added to the calendar, as well as the 13 moons. And I say 13 because sometimes there's that wonky 13th moon. And we now call that the moon of the flame imperishable. Okay. Isil na royale. Okay. So, oh, Vera Faith says, hey, I would buy it.
Cool.
Very good. Awesome. So, yeah, we're looking at doing that either, and with either like Llewellyn Books, which is in the United States. It's also the largest metaphysical publisher. It is also a mid-sized publisher if you were to look at publishing houses as a general thing. And then there's a small but amazing press overseas in the UK called Collective Ink, INK, and they have a imprint that is called Moon Books that is done for the pagan market. And they also have other ones that are like even for Christian, like esoteric Christian and stuff. So I may even like find out like on that one, like whether they would classify our work as a pagan market or as a Christian market. So it might end up being both. I mean, for all I know, you know what I'm saying? They may put it on O books like for general spirituality or something like that. So, but I know some people that have been working with Moon Books for a while. I have a few anthologies that are done with them. I actually have some spells that were done. Like I did the ones for Llewellyn for the Spell a Day Almanac all those years ago. And then we also did some for Lucy Sarza's book on, she calls it the Book of Days, the Pagan Book of Days. And it's a book that you can recycle at the end of the year, and you go back to page 1 and you're back at the beginning, and you do the book every year. So Astrofel says that she would buy it too. Or I'm sorry, Astrofel. Are you male or female? I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm so sorry. So in any case, Astrofel will purchase as well. So that's amazing. So yeah. Dekindre has been working with paganpages.org, which is transgender. Oh, I didn't realize that. Thank you for telling me. You're he, okay. We understand female to male. Okay, great. So you're he. I will try to remember that. And the reason I get confused, I'll be honest with you, is because the EL is usually a female ending on the Elvish names. So just, you know, saying that I may forget. So please just remind me, okay? So Okay. So that's I think that that's a wrap, unless you guys have any other questions for me. So I became an author a long time ago through the annuals with Llewellyn, and Raven Digitalis. It was the one that got me on board there, and he lives in Montana, and he's back in Montana right now, actually. And I did some writing for him recently for his spell book that's coming out for empaths in the next, I don't know, I think it's by next fall or winter. So that's pretty cool. Astrophil says, I'm going to have to come up with a male elven name so that it will be easier for you to remember. Yeah, but then I won't remember that it's you and I'll get confused. So it's fine. I'll figure it out. Okay. That's fine. No worries. Okay. Awesome. So, yeah, I haven't seen any other questions. LOL. Yeah, so if you guys have any other questions, you can feel free to ask me. But yeah, you guys know a lot more probably now about my background, my, my profession, my spiritual leanings before and after. I mean, I still, have moments where I resonate with other paths, because I mean, I actually know a lot of people who resonate with, high magic, and they resonate with the Egyptian pantheon. They resonate with Hecate and the Greek pantheon. They resonate with the Celtic pantheon and Breed and the Morrigan, which I resonate quite a bit with. They resonate with the heathen path and Asatru and the Teutonic energies of the northern pantheons, like Thor and Odin and that type of stuff. There's people that I know that resonate with the Hindu path. I am very tied, like, with, I guess, past lives and everything else with the whole, not only that, but like the medicine, the exercise, like I love the Hindu and like Vedic viewpoint of so many things. But this lifetime, I really felt like it was important for me to like really dig deep into the Western lore. And that means Western herbalism, Western astrology. So that's why I ended up specializing in those. Although I do know pieces of, I know pieces of Vedic astrology, I know pieces of Chinese astrology, and I know like pieces of human design. I know pieces of like all kinds of things. So it's, because human design actually uses chakras and I Ching along with astrology, and interestingly the tropical one, which is kind of funny there. So, but it's a system that like integrates Eastern systems. So I just thought that that was kind of something to bring up. I also, like know enough about numerology. I know enough about, like lots of different things. However, I can't list them all in my occupation. So the ones that are listed are astrologer, herbalist, pendulum dowser. I'm a tarot reader, and I do other oracle cards as well, like various oracle cards. And I even do rune readings and stuff like that sometimes too. Not as often, but it's mostly tarot. Okay. And I am a ULC Reverend, so that I could marry people. And I got that back in 2006 or 7, when we thought that this path might be marrying couples. So I got that just in case that would ever be necessary. And I'm also an Usui Reiki Master. I got my Reiki 1 in 2000 from Stacy Yod, who I just love him so much. He's out in North Carolina. He was one of the OG, like, early people to become a Reiki Master. So his lineage is very high up in the Takata line and Usui himself. So I'm only like number 6 or 7, like down the tree from that. So thank you, Stacy, for that. Christopher Penzak actually gave me my Reiki 2, and that was an interesting moment because I did an astrology reading for like like a polyamorous arrangement of, you know, like a kind of thing, and nobody knew how to do like the way that I did it. Okay, so I told him what I would do, and he loved it, and he's like, I want a reading, and I'm like, you know, and he was going to pay me, and I'm like, actually, I'd rather be a Reiki too. You know, I'd rather have the attunement. So he gave me an attunement. So I actually have an attunement from Christopher Penzak. And then in 2010, I became an Usui Reiki Master from Stacy when he came out to visit me in Montana. So that's more of my professional background. It looks like Astrophel says, I resonate with the Gaulish and Slavic Eastern European paths. Wow, cool. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff with that too. I've actually read some of the lore with Eastern, you know, like the Slavic Eastern paganism. It's beautiful. It's really awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And then there's Santa Muerte. Yes, that's very common lately. I noticed that a lot of people are very much resonating with the Santa Muerte energy. Muerte meaning death, or, you know, the transition. Okay, there's a lot of people that resonate with that dark goddess energy, if you will. And I would say in our path, that would be kind of like working with Nienna, you know, energy, she who cries. We did that with Solvaweras back on, you know, February 1st, 2nd, you know, through there, like at the same time as Imbolc is for other people who are pagan. And so you can just look for our channel and look for Nienna or Solvaweras, and you will find it if you want to do that. And we definitely recommended like taking a bath, like with your ritual and other stuff. Like maybe don't take your devices in the bathtub, don't do that. But we really like the cleansing in the bathtub if you can do it. It's really wonderful. You can also cleanse with a shower too. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, but we really like soaking in the water if we can do it. And especially if we can add salt and essential oils and vinegar and all of the things that like really cut away the junk, you know, when you can really refresh yourself. And on that note, I want to wish all of you guys a happy new moon. So at the time that this started, the new moon was actually happening in Pisces, and this is like, you know, astrology here. But again, we should probably do like Arwen Undomiel like very soon. Maybe on the day that Venus goes retrograde, like maybe we'll do it on the day she goes retrograde. That would be on March 1st. Dave, are you perhaps available on March 1st and to do the art document?
Oh, you mean for the
Yeah,
the
and
hour
if you
document that we
can't,
talked about?
like it'll be
Yeah,
okay. Like we could
yeah.
improvise or something.
I should be able to. Let's see, what is it
Yeah.
today? 27. Yeah, I
Today is
should be
the
able to.
27th, so tomorrow's the 28th. I'm busy, or else I would do it then. I am getting interviewed on my so you guys, okay, so I have a friend named Donna Woodwell. Okay, I'm gonna put her address in here.
The only thing for me that might put a fly in the ointment is I'm doing or like I told you in chat, you may not remember, but I'm doing a reinstall of a new
I
system.
remember that.
So
I remember that.
it might be like a day or so late or something like that, but you know, it would depends upon when we can schedule it. You know.
Okay. So I put a link called magicandmastery.com. Okay, I actually work for this website. I love Donna. She did such a gorgeous job. And they actually have a free community that I actually am involved in. So they have a book club, and right now they're reading Raven Digitalis's Esoteric Empathy. Isn't that funny? And he's getting interviewed on Saturday. Okay. So that happens at 12 o'clock though. So I'll be available in the evening that day. So that's why I thought we should maybe do it on that day. And then I'm going to be interviewing, because I do the thing for her called the Divination Potluck. And what that is I end up hosting a free room. So if you guys want to sign up for it, you can. I am going to be doing a podcast interview for her, so it won't be live casted, so you won't be able to watch me live, but you can actually go to the divination potluck, and it looks like they don't have a link from it here, so let me see if I can type it in. Let me see if that works. Oops. Okay, it says no, that's not working. Darn it. So let me find out what the link is, because she gave it to me and it worked fine, and I thought it was Divination Potluck. And I'll type it in the chat. Okay, I'll switch emails here briefly. Here we go. Oh, I guess it has to have the, oh, I put a dash in it. Hang on. So let's try it again. Okay, hopefully that works. Okay. And Dave, you can't check it right now, right? I have to go to see if it works.
What are we talking about now?
The links that I'm putting into the live chat. Like, if you can't do it, I can check it here and see if it works. Yes, it works. The second one works. I'm so sorry, you guys. So it says Divination Potluck, and if you go down, and this is a free service that the school does. And let me explain what happens. So if you guys are readers of cards, like, but you're not confident in your skills because you've only read books, you've only read for yourself, maybe for a handful of friends, but you want to get more reading experience about, like, you know, like real situations and things like that, we invite you to come, and we have a very sacred space, and I am the one that holds the container for everybody to do the readings, and sometimes I do the readings too. So you'll scroll down and you'll see me, and that is what I'm going to be interviewing for with the podcast that Magic and Mastery has. So you can, like, check out their YouTube channel, and she has some really amazing magical stuff. Okay, Astrophil, the 404, did you get that on the second link too, or did you only get it on the first link? Okay, maybe he stepped away.
I can attempt
only
to.
On the second link. Okay, Magic and Mastery. I spelled it correctly. Potluck. Yeah. I don't know why it's not working. Okay. Because it works for me over in this thing. Well, maybe if I add the www, maybe that's. I don't know why that would matter.
Can you put the URL for the YouTube stream right now into our private chat? Then I can check it. I can check it in another browser, because I'm looking back to our,
I see.
I'm looking back through our Facebook Messenger here, and I can't locate it.
Okay,
I'm not good at locating.
Divination Potluck, and it doesn't have a dash. Try that, and because there is a www, and normally it doesn't matter to have that or not.
It doesn't it doesn't anymore. It used to, but not really
that worked.
Anymore.
She said that, or he said that worked. Okay. I will remember. Okay, I'm trying to trying to do this. Okay, so awesome. Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to be doing that on the next time that we're going to be doing it is like in a couple of weeks at the full moon and the eclipse. So that should be pretty damn interesting. So we're going to be like doing some, you know, like a lot of protections around the eclipse, you know, because magic work is something that you don't want to really do around the eclipse usually, except for protection.
After the broadcast here, I'll have to go over with you a little bit more about what you want in the document, because I can write it pretty quick, but I'll need more information from you.
I understand, and yeah, and we'll let everybody go that has to. Oh, cool. And oh, I will get better, okay, Astrophil, I will get better. I really will, I promise. Okay. And okay, so Verifaith, try the third link, Verifaith. Hopefully it worked. This one here. Try the one with the www in front. Apparently it needs the www. Whatever. I don't know why systems are so weird about, you know, whether it has a www or not. I don't get it.
It depends upon the DNS server that's going through, you know.
Yeah. And that's why, well, what I did was when I went to Google Console, what I did for our websites was I did all 4 versions, like the HTTP and the HTTPS, and then the www, and then without the www. So then that way, no matter what you put in, it goes to the right website. Yeah.
Exactly what you just described. Yeah, it's the local settings that gets sent out to the main DNS servers. That's the main difference. You know, some people are not as thorough for whatever reason.
Okay, guys, stay tuned for March 1st in the evening, meaning Saturday, like evening. That is the day that Venus goes retrograde. That's the day that, you know, she's still the highest in the sky. She's going to start descending. So we definitely want to do Arwen Undomiel. And by the time that April, say 12th or 13th comes, when she's on the other side of the sky, we want to, maybe we should do a morning ritual that day. You know, wake up early in the morning when she's up in the sky, we could see her. And then we do the morning ritual. You know, that would be awesome. Okay. I don't know what to tell you. It's up here. I see it. This is what it looks like. You can hand type it in. It'll be just divination potluck without a hyphen, magicandmastery.com, and use no K. Okay. magicandmastery.com/divination potluck. Okay. And that should work. And if not, I'll send it to you on Facebook Messenger. Just remind me, because I'm going to forget, because I have a bunch of stuff that I have to remember right now, including talking to Dave after this. And then I got to talk to my client after this. So
the actual domain loads fine here. So, you know.
Okay.
Magic and Mastery.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And since nobody else has any questions, I guess that we'll go ahead and wrap this part up. Dave, I'll just end the stream. You and I can stay here in StreamYard and talk about what we're going to do. And then, and if it goes down, I will send you a Google Meet link. Okay. So.
Right. All right.
Awesome. Oh, she's in. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yay. Awesome. So I will see you guys later. It was so fun hanging out, and I wish that more people had questions and stuff. I see that 5 people are on the stream, so I'm not sure who's watching, and it's fine. You can say hi, or you don't have to say hi at this point. But great for you guys to be here. Thank you again. And I look forward to another 20 years of serving the Elven spiritual path, which is now called the Way of Arda's Lore. And Astrophel says, bye. We need more of these hangout streams. Yeah. Aw. I love it every much. Oh, I'm guessing you meant ever so much. Yeah. So that's so sweet. Aw. It is right this moment. Did you just get here? We just completed and we were just saying goodbye to everybody. I'm so sorry. Side Questers is here saying, wait, this is live. Yes, it's live. What is your interest in Tolkien spirituality, side questers? Okay, side questers, if you don't have anything else to write, we're going to end the stream now, okay? So if you have any comments or anything, you can go ahead and leave a comment down. Oh, hang on. Someone sent me this link and I had no idea what it is, LOL. Oh, okay. So that's so cute. So I'm not sure, but they must like Tolkien, and they might also have a spiritual resonance with Tolkien's Middle-earth stories called the Legendarium. And that is what we've been doing for 20 years now. And so
that's our main group's
interview,
purpose.
my conversation / interview tonight was kind of covering all of the ground of that. So if you would like, you could watch the replay when we're done here. If you want to know about our background and my background, before the path and after, you know, and after it started, and like our process, and, you know, like the direction we're going and things like that. So, okay. I hope that answers the question pretty well, and because we have to end the stream. It's getting kind of late and we have people that have to go. I have a client that needs me separate, you know, from this whole thing. Okay. He says, oh, we're big Tolkien fans here at Side Questers HQ. I'll definitely check it out. Excellent. So we do actually, I will tell you just for your own knowledge, that we access the spiritual meanings of the texts. That's what we do. So we're not role players. We're not gamers. We're not, you know, any of those things. We literally look at the materials of Tolkien, and we look for the deeper spiritual meanings of the texts, but we go further than that, and we actually created a path that is based on Tolkien's Legendarium. So if you want to know more about us, like from a scholarly level, we actually have a couple of doctorate level type people that have done work with us before. Dr. Marcus Davidson, who is in the Netherlands, he teaches material on alternative spirituality. He did his whole thesis on us, and he's actually going to be reviewing us here again, like 20 years later type of thing.
We should probably put the link in the comments.
Though.
We should probably put the link in the comments for
okay. I'm going to spell his name because I don't remember his his website, but if he looks up Dr. Marcus Davidson with his spelling, I'm sure he'll find him.
I can find it too.
Also, we recently were featured on the Tolkien Society's website with Emily Baines doing a presentation and a contrast between us and the Catholic canonization movement. So we actually appeared with that too. So just so that you want to know, like, you know, kind of what we've been appearing in lately. So, because I don't know who gave you this link, so I don't really know, like, you know, like what their background is and what they feel about Tolkien and whatnot. So I just wanted to give you some context if that helps. So Dr. Marcus Davidson. Okay. Oops. What's this? Okay. Another screen just popped up. Okay. I got rid of it. So we're going to close out the session tonight. Thank you, Side Questers, for coming. We really appreciate you stopping by, and we hope you like our channel. And we are like just, you know, we're just very small operation right now. We wish we had a lot of, you know, other people helping with what we're doing right now. But, you know, it'll grow and it'll get there. But we've been basically a nonprofit spiritual organization since 2020. We have been around since 2005. And for Dave, he was around for 30 years prior to that. So, you know, we're pretty OG here, okay? So you have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you later. Have a good night. Bye, everybody.
Bye.